London was engulfed in the biting cold of winter, with pure white snowflakes gently falling onto the rooftops of its historic buildings and stretching across the cobblestone streets. Inside Lancaster Castle, a grand estate rented for the evening's gala, the atmosphere was entirely different, warm, opulent, and illuminated by dazzling lights. The most powerful figures in finance and real estate had gathered, swirling their glasses of wine as they conversed about the year's most significant deals. This charity gala was not just a showcase of generosity. It was also a stage for discreet negotiations and quiet business dealings that could shape the future. Amidst the grandeur, Ethan Whitmore strode into the main hall, exuding confidence in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. All eyes turned to him, the millionaire CEO who had built a real estate empire in just a decade. Ethan was used to this kind of attention. He had learned to treat it as an inevitable part of his life. What he hadn't expected was a pair of wide, stunned eyes watching him from a quiet corner of the room. Amelia Bennett stood behind the buffet table, gripping a tray of champagne flutes, her palms ice cold despite the warmth of the room. She couldn't believe her eyes. Ethan, the man she had once loved, was standing there, still carrying the same confidence and charm he always had. But now the distance between them was not just physical, it was an entire world apart. Her fingers tightened around the serving tray to keep herself from trembling. He couldn't see her. He couldn't recognize her. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs as Ethan slowed his steps, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, nearly settling on her. With every ounce of self-preservation she had, Amelia turned away, slipping into the swarm of busy servers before he could take a second look. She had prepared herself for every possible challenge tonight. Difficult guests, demanding colleagues, even an intrusive journalist. But she had not prepared for this. And she had no idea that within mere hours, every secret she had buried for the past 4 years would come to light. I hope you're all doing well. May God bless you with love, joy, and peace. I pray your days shine bright, your burdens ease, and your dreams come true. How did our last story touch you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly value them. You're more than subscribers. You're family. Your presence means the world to me. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to be. Everything began 5 years ago when Amelia Bennett was still a young, dreamy university student in London. She worked part-time at a small cafe near the city center, a place where young entrepreneurs often stop by to get some work done between meetings. And it was there that she met Ethan Whitmore, a man who carried a storm of ambition and passion within him. The first time he walked into the cafe, Amelia was drawn to him. Not because of his sharp looks or the simple yet elegant suit he wore, but because of his piercing, steel blue eyes, filled with relentless determination. When he stood at the counter and ordered a strong black coffee, she found herself watching him longer than she should have. And then, when Ethan looked up, their eyes met, for a fleeting second that somehow felt like an eternity. "Do you believe in destiny?" he asked, his deep voice carrying an air of quiet confidence. Amelia chuckled, unsure if it was a pickup line or a serious question. "If it gets you a discount on your coffee, then maybe I do." Ethan laughed along, and that was how it all began. They started dating, but not in the way most couples did. Ethan wasn't the type of man to spend hours strolling through parks or watching movies on a lazy afternoon. He lived for plans, numbers, and the vision of building his own real estate empire. He could stay up all night in his cramped apartment, flipping through pages of financial reports, sketching out investment strategies on an old whiteboard. And Amelia, though she wasn't a part of that world, loved him anyway. She loved the way Ethan saw the world with unyielding hunger, the stubborn determination that defined him. Even when she sometimes felt like nothing more than a shadow beside his towering ambitions, she believed that in his own way he loved her too. But perhaps she was wrong. One day Ethan was given the biggest opportunity of his life, an investment deal in New York, a chance to bring his dreams to reality. It came suddenly and with promises of a future he'd always longed for. And the moment Amelia heard the news, she knew she was going to lose him. She tried to hold on to him, but not with desperate pleas or tears. "Do you have to go?" she asked the night before his flight, as they sat by the window of his apartment, watching the bustling streets of London below. Ethan turned to her, his eyes gleaming with unwavering determination. "Amelia, you know this is my dream. I've been waiting for this chance my entire life." She fell silent. She knew Ethan wouldn't change his mind. She knew that in his heart, his career would always come first. But what hurt the most wasn't that he was leaving. It was that he never even asked if she wanted to go with him. And so he left, leaving her alone with only memories and doubts. 2 weeks after Ethan left London, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. The moment she saw the two red lines appear on the pregnancy test, Amelia nearly collapsed. She sank onto the floor of her tiny bathroom, her trembling hands clutching the test stick as tears streamed down her face. What was she supposed to do? She had tried to contact Ethan. She called his number, but an automated voice informed her that it had been disconnected. She sent emails, but her messages disappeared into silence. She searched for news about him, and each time she was met with dazzling headlines on financial news sites. Young entrepreneur Ethan Whitmore signs multi-million-dollar deal with a major U.S. real estate corporation. Ethan Whitmore, the rising CEO reshaping the market. He had succeeded. He had achieved his dreams. And Amelia, all she had left were the cracks in her heart and a tiny life growing inside her, a secret that Ethan might never know. There were nights when Amelia sat on her bed, holding her belly, wondering if she should find another way to reach Ethan. But then she would remember the unanswered calls, the emails that never received a reply, and she would tell herself that perhaps Ethan had already chosen his own path. In the end, she decided to raise the child on her own. The days that followed were long and grueling. She had to drop out of school and find a more stable job to prepare for the arrival of Liam. She learned to be independent, to become a mother without anyone by her side. Liam was born on a freezing winter day in a modest hospital. He had the same green eyes as Ethan, and the moment Amelia saw him, she knew this child would be her reason to keep going, to be strong. But being a single mother was never easy. Without a degree, without a wealthy family to support her, Amelia had to juggle multiple jobs to provide for her son, working as a waitress, a cashier, even cleaning hotel rooms. She became accustomed to exhausting shifts, to holidays spent watching Christmas lights through a window rather than celebrating them. And now as she stood in the grand ballroom of the lavish gala venue, dressed in a server's uniform, she knew she and Ethan belonged to two completely different worlds. He, a millionaire bathed in the glow of success. She, a waitress barely holding on, just trying to survive. And the cruelest twist of fate? Tonight their worlds would collide once again. Her fingers tightened around the serving tray as Ethan's gaze landed on her. A flicker of recognition passed through his stormy steel blue eyes, as if he was trying to remember where he had seen her before. Amelia's heart stopped. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready to face the man who had once been her entire world. She wasn't ready to tell him the truth, that Liam, the child he knew nothing about, was waiting for her in the staff room behind the ballroom. And most of all, she wasn't ready for Ethan to find out that the little boy was his son. Ravenshire Castle, an 18th century architectural gem, gleamed brightly amidst London's winter. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, cloaking the ancient stone walls in a soft, ethereal white. Inside the vast grand hall, crystal chandeliers cast shimmering reflections across intricately carved walls, where the city's elite, business magnates, politicians, and aristocrats indulged in an extravagant soiree. Elegant laughter, the gentle clink of wine glasses, and conversations about billion-dollar deals echoed throughout the room. At the heart of the gathering stood Ethan Whitmore, a millionaire CEO, the man everyone wanted to talk to, towering like a flawless sculpture of power. His sharp black tuxedo, unshakable presence, and perfectly measured smile embodied the image of a man who had mastered success. As he conversed with a group of investors, his gaze occasionally swept across the room, like a predator surveying his territory. And then he saw her. Ethan recognized Amelia Bennett instantly. It felt like a punch to the chest, knocking every ounce of focus out of him. Amelia, the woman he once loved, the woman he had left behind to chase his dreams. She stood among the servers, dressed in a simple uniform, her hair neatly tied back, holding a tray of champagne flutes. She looked different, thinner, more mature, but her deep brown eyes still held something he could never forget. She saw him too. Amelia froze the moment Ethan's gaze met hers. She had prepared herself for everything tonight, except this. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like everyone in the room could hear it. Number, this couldn't be happening. She turned away immediately, pretending not to notice, rushing toward the staff area. But Ethan wasn't the kind of man to let anything slip past his notice. And he certainly wasn't the kind of man to let a woman like Amelia walk out of his life again without an answer. He handed his glass to a passing waiter, his stormy steel blue eyes darkening with determination. "Excuse me for a moment," he said curtly before striding in the direction where Amelia had disappeared. She was running from him, and that only made him want to find out the truth even more. Amelia ran, almost fled. She moved quickly through the kitchen area, her fingers gripping the serving tray so tightly her knuckles turned white. She had to get out of here. She needed to find somewhere safe before Ethan caught up with her. But just as she turned into a narrow hallway, a co-worker rushed toward her, voice hushed in urgent panic. "Amelia, where's your son?" A cold chill ran down her spine. "In the staff lounge," she answered immediately, but her heart leapt to her throat. "He's not there anymore." The co-worker's voice trembled, her worried eyes sending a fresh wave of terror through Amelia. Amelia felt the blood drain from her body. No, this couldn't be happening. At the same time, in another corner of the castle, a small boy with bright emerald green eyes wandered across the cold marble floor. Liam Bennett. He just wanted to find his mother. The staff lounge was too quiet, and the world outside was dazzling. The warm lights, the elegantly dressed guests, the lively atmosphere. Everything was so different from the small room where his mother had told him to wait. Curious, Liam took a few steps forward, his tiny shoes making soft tapping sounds against the stone floor. He rounded a large pillar, and then, bump! Liam collided straight into a tall man striding through the hallway. Ethan halted. Instinctively, he crouched down, placing his hands on the child's shoulders to steady him. But in that very moment, the world around him froze. The boy looked up at him, his emerald green eyes shining under the chandelier light. His eyes, It wasn't possible. Ethan's heart slammed against his rib cage. A shiver ran down his spine. Everything inside him plummeted into an abyss of uncertainty. This child looked terrifyingly like him. Liam tilted his head, staring at Ethan with innocent curiosity. "Who are you, mister?" Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was racing, his chest tightening with something unspoken. But before he could even process what was happening, a frantic voice rang out from behind. "Liam!" Amelia appeared, rushing toward them, her eyes wide with fear as she took in the scene before her. She darted forward and scooped Liam into her arms, holding him close as if shielding him from the world. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "My son is a little too adventurous." But she couldn't hide the truth. Not from Ethan. Not from the way his stormy steel blue eyes were now darkened with shock, suspicion, something dangerously close to realization. He stood there, frozen, his gaze locked onto Liam. No, his son, in Amelia's arms. "Amelia," Ethan finally spoke, his voice low, laced with an unspoken threat. "What the hell is going on?" Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She knew, from this moment on, there was no turning back. The VIP room at Ravenshire Castle glowed warmly under the soft radiance of crystal chandeliers. The air carried the rich scent of aged oak and expensive whiskey, blending with the quiet murmur of exclusive conversations. The oil paintings lining the walls seemed almost alive, watching, absorbing every unfolding event. Leaning against the bar, a glass of whiskey in hand, Victor Blackwood, one of the most ruthless investors in London's financial world, kept his cold, calculating gaze locked on Ethan Whitmore. Victor was more than just a businessman. He was a man who had built an empire on the shadows of corruption, backroom deals, illicit transactions, and a network of secrets so deep that most wouldn't dare cross him. And tonight he had set his sights on Ethan Whitmore. He had heard the whispers, the rumors that Ethan Whitmore, the celebrated millionaire, the darling of business magazines, had a secret child. Victor didn't care about morality. He only saw weakness. He took a slow sip of whiskey before setting his glass down with a deliberate clink. Fascinating, Victor drawled, his voice slow, smooth, like a serpent coiling around its prey. I never expected to uncover such a scandalous secret at a charity gala. Ethan stood across from him, his entire body taut like a drawn bow, his expression unreadable, but his steel blue eyes colder than ice. What do you want, Victor? Ethan's voice was low, guarded. Victor smirked. I only want to help you, Ethan. I know that boy is your son, but the real question is... He paused, a glint of amusement flickering in his eyes. Should the world know about it? Ethan's fist clenched. Don't test me, he warned. Victor chuckled, shaking his head. No, no. This isn't a threat. This is an opportunity, a mutually beneficial arrangement. He stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough for only Ethan to hear. I have a very lucrative deal, Victor murmured. An investment project in Eastern Europe. If you agree to partner with me, I can ensure that no newspaper, no journalist, no one ever gets their hands on the story of your hidden son. Ethan let out a cold laugh. A dirty deal, I assume? Victor gave a casual shrug, his expression entirely unfazed. Dirty or not depends on perspective. But one thing is certain. If you refuse... He leaned in, his voice lowering to a whisper. By tomorrow morning, the front page headline will read, Ethan Whitmore's hidden child revealed. The air between them grew so tight it felt like a thread about to snap. Ethan stared Victor down, his gaze sharp as a blade. You're making a huge mistake, Victor. Victor simply smiled. I, on the other hand, think I'm holding the key to controlling you. A different corner of the gala. Between the clinking of champagne glasses and the hollow laughter of the elite, a pair of sharp, observant eyes watched from the sidelines. Miles Calloway, London's most ruthless investigative journalist, stood near the bar, a cocktail in hand, untouched. From the moment Ethan Whitmore had entered the gala, Miles had noticed something off. It wasn't Ethan himself. It was the way Ethan had reacted to a certain waitress. Miles had experience. He knew the signs of a big story. The way Ethan had looked at her, it wasn't the glance of a powerful businessman noticing a random server. It was something much deeper. And when she turned away, Miles had seen the darkness settle over Ethan's face, the silent intensity of a man who wasn't just watching, he was following her with his mind. This wasn't an ordinary encounter. Miles narrowed his eyes, set his drink down, and silently slipped away from the main gala area. He needed to investigate this further, hunting for clues. Miles started with the staff. As an experienced journalist, he knew the golden rule. The wait staff always knew more than they let on. All it took was a little subtlety. He approached a bartender first, appearing like a casual guest engaging in idle conversation. The waitress serving the main floor tonight, she seemed tense, Miles noted casually, as if making an offhand remark. The bartender glanced at him, then shrugged. Oh, Amelia. She's usually quiet, but tonight, yeah, she looked shaken. I've never seen her this nervous before. Miles leaned back slightly, his expression carefully unreadable. What was she so afraid of? The bartender hesitated. Not sure, but I saw her rushing to the staff lounge a lot tonight. And I think she has a son. Miles paused. A son? He rested an elbow on the bar, feigning casual interest. She brought her son here? The bartender shrugged again. I don't know, but she mentioned a child to a coworker. Miles nodded, acting disinterested, but in his mind the puzzle pieces were already falling into place. Amelia, Ethan, a child. Could it be? Miles swiftly left the bar, needing more confirmation. Not long after, he overheard two housekeeping staff members whispering near the back quarters. Did you hear about Ethan and that waitress? No idea, but they looked intense. Someone said Ethan even confronted her directly. It's like there's a major scandal brewing. Miles' pulse quickened. He had found his story, and if his hunch was correct, by morning London would be on fire with the news. Meanwhile, Amelia struggled to keep everything under control. She knew Ethan wouldn't let this go. She had seen the suspicion in his eyes, the determination in his voice, and she knew that somewhere out there, men like Miles Calloway and Victor Blackwood were waiting, circling like vultures, ready to turn her and Liam's life into complete chaos. She just wanted to protect her son, but the cracks in her secret had already formed, and soon it would shatter. The confrontation. Amelia hurried down the velvet-carpeted hallway, her breath uneven. The grand ballroom still buzzed with laughter and music behind the ornate doors, but to her it felt like she was trapped inside a nightmare. She had to avoid Ethan, but just as she turned into the corridor leading to the staff area, a firm hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. She gasped, spinning around. Ethan! He stood there, towering, his sharp black suit fitting him perfectly, making his tall frame even more imposing. But it was his eyes, his stormy, steel blue eyes, brimming with a brewing storm, that stole her breath away. We need to talk. Ethan's voice was low, but it carried a weight too heavy to ignore. There's nothing to talk about, Amelia shot back quickly, trying to yank her wrist away. But Ethan's grip tightened, not painfully, but just enough to keep her from running. Really? He arched a brow, his voice chillingly calm. Then explain. Explain why you looked terrified when you saw me. Explain why you've been avoiding me all night. And most importantly, his eyes darkened, his tone dropping lower. Explain why a child with my exact eyes just called you Mom. Amelia's heart plummeted. She had known this moment would come. She had known Ethan wasn't a fool, but still, she wasn't ready to face it. Ethan, don't lie to me, Amelia. Ethan cut her off, his voice not loud, but every syllable was heavy, unshakable. I saw him. That boy. He inhaled sharply, like he still couldn't believe what he was about to say. He's mine, isn't he? His words dropped into the air like a verdict. Amelia shuddered. She wanted to say no. She wanted to deny it all, but then she looked into his eyes, the same eyes Liam had, and she knew. She couldn't lie anymore. She closed her eyes, her small frame trembling. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Liam is your son. It felt like a punch to Ethan's chest. He took a step back, as if he needed space to breathe. Everything around him, the glittering chandeliers, the soft waltz music drifting from the ballroom, the distant chatter of London's elite, all of it blurred. All that mattered now was Amelia, and the words she had just spoken. Inside him, a storm raged. Anger, shock, pain, loss. He had a child, a 4-year-old child, and he never even knew. Jesus Christ, Ethan murmured, his fists clenching at his sides. Why, Amelia? Why didn't you tell me? Amelia bit her lip, her eyes shimmering with pain. I tried, she admitted, her voice breaking. I tried to reach you, but you were gone. Your number was disconnected. Your company told me you had left London. I couldn't find you. Ethan went still. He thought back to those first years in New York, the relentless grind, the endless work hours, the all-consuming ambition that had built his empire. He had been so focused on success, but he never knew that while he was chasing his dreams, Amelia had been left behind, carrying his child alone. You could have tried harder, he said, his voice hoarse with anger and regret. You could have found another way. Instead, you kept him from me. Amelia's head snapped up, fire flashing in her gaze. Do you think I wanted this? She snapped. Do you think I wanted to be a single mother, struggling to raise a child on my own? Do you think I wanted to sit alone in a cramped apartment, watching our son grow up, never knowing who his father was? Her breath shook, her hands trembled, but she kept going. I had no choice, Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. You were gone, and I had to survive. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He could be angry. He could blame her. But deep down, he knew. She had endured it all alone. She had worked herself to exhaustion to provide for their son. She had carried this secret, this burden, always fearing the day it would come crashing down. And him? He had spent the past 4 years believing he had nothing to lose. He had lived his life in luxury, thinking he was free, but he had lost so much. He had missed it all. Liam's first smile, his first steps, his first words, the nights Amelia had stayed up, rocking their sick child back to sleep. He hadn't been there. A raw, aching regret settled deep in his bones. His throat was dry. His chest felt heavy. Too much time had already slipped away. He looked at Amelia again, and for the first time, there was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet, desperate need. Amelia, he swallowed hard. I need to see him. I need to meet my son. Amelia looked at him, her heart clenching. She had spent 4 years believing she had to do this alone, that Ethan would never come back, that he would never know about Liam. But standing before her now, she saw something different. For the first time in 4 years, she believed he wouldn't abandon them again. The sky over London was gray, the winter wind sharp as a blade against the skin. But the real storm wasn't in the weather, it was in the media. The first photo surfaced on social media, a picture of Ethan crouching down, staring at Liam, his expression a mixture of shock and deep emotion. The little boy clung tightly to Amelia's hand, his face hesitant, uncertain. Beneath the image, a sensational headline flashed. Ethan Whitmore, Millionaire CEO, secretly has a son who is the mysterious mother. The news spread like wildfire. Online articles exploded, business forums debated the scandal's impact on Ethan's image, and tabloids capitalized on the drama. An illegitimate child, a hidden mother, a powerful CEO unaware of his own son. Ethan's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from his board of directors, investors, and worst of all, the press. Meanwhile, Victor Blackwood had already made his move. Inside a luxurious penthouse suite overlooking London, Victor set his phone down with a chilling smile. Before him lay a thick stack of documents, a new investment deal, laced with hidden clauses that could ruin a man. Victor knew Ethan, knew he was a man of principle, not one to get involved in dirty dealings. But now he had something Ethan could not afford to ignore. Liam. That evening, Ethan walked into a private lounge, a haven for the elite. The golden glow of chandeliers did little to warm the tension between them. Victor lounged casually in his seat, swirling his glass of whiskey, as if he had all the time in the world. Ethan, he greeted, his voice a calm, dangerous murmur. Did you see the news this morning? Ethan's jaw tightened. I saw it. Good. Victor smirked. That was just a taste. The press only has a fragment of the story right now. But if I wanted... He leaned forward slightly, eyes gleaming with malicious amusement. I could give them something much bigger, a more interesting angle. Ethan's expression darkened. What do you want? Victor slid the documents across the table. It's simple, he said smoothly. Sign this, agree to my terms, and I ensure the media will forget all about your little secret. Ethan glanced at the papers, an international real estate deal, but he knew it wasn't clean. His eyes lifted, cold and razor sharp. You're blackmailing me? Victor chuckled. Don't be so dramatic. Let's call it a mutually beneficial arrangement. You keep your reputation intact, and I secure a valuable business partner. Ethan stood, his voice turning to ice. I will never sign this. Victor leaned back with a lazy shrug. I figured you'd say that, but you should reconsider. His eyes sharpened, voice dropping low. Because if you refuse... He let the silence stretch, savoring the moment before delivering his final blow. I won't just destroy Ethan Whitmore. I will drag Amelia and Liam into the fire too. The moment Ethan left the meeting, he knew Victor wasn't bluffing. And barely an hour later, his phone rang. Amelia's voice trembled through the speaker. Ethan, she whispered, panic laced in her tone. Someone's following me. Ethan's blood ran cold. Where are you? I just left the store after picking up some things for Liam. When I got back to my car, there was a man standing nearby. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, but when I started driving home, she took a shaky breath. A black car has been tailing me ever since. In the background, Liam's small voice piped up from the back seat, innocent and unaware. Mommy? What's wrong? Amelia gripped the steering wheel tighter, forcing calm into her voice. Nothing, sweetheart. It's okay. But Ethan knew it wasn't okay. Victor had made his move. His voice turned steely, commanding. Listen to me carefully, Amelia. Turn the car around. Drive straight to my house. Don't go back to your apartment. I'll be waiting at the gate. Amelia hesitated. Ethan, do it! Now! She hung up, her hands trembling as she tightened her grip on the wheel. She glanced into the rearview mirror. Liam's curious green eyes stared back at her. He didn't understand, didn't know that danger lurked just behind them. Amelia forced a reassuring smile, even as her heart pounded against her ribs. It's okay, my love, she murmured. Everything's going to be fine. But as she turned the steering wheel, her stomach dropped. She flicked her gaze back to the mirror. The black car was still there, and it wasn't backing off. Amelia could no longer keep running. Victor would not stop. She could endure everything, but she could not let Liam be in danger. As she drove through the gates of Ethan's estate, he was already waiting, his face a mixture of worry and anger. He opened the car door, helping Liam out before turning to Amelia. Did you see anyone else besides that car? Ethan asked. Amelia shook her head, her voice trembling. I don't know. All I know is I can't live like this anymore, Ethan. Liam can't live like this. Their eyes met, and in that moment, they both understood. There was no way back. Ethan had to face Victor. Amelia had to step out of the shadows. The truth about Liam would come out, but this time, they wouldn't run. They would fight. Together. 7. Ethan turns the tables. Ethan could not let Victor win. If Victor dared to blackmail him with Liam's existence, then Ethan would make sure he never had the chance to negotiate again. He called Matteo, his trusted friend and the manager of the hotel where the gala had taken place. Matteo had worked there for years and knew the hidden dealings of the elite. Matteo, I need your help, Ethan said, his voice low and firm. Say no more, Matteo replied immediately. I figured you'd call. I've already heard some troubling things about Victor from the hotel staff. Matteo arranged to meet Ethan in the hotel's surveillance room. There he played security footage from hidden cameras placed throughout the venue. What Ethan saw made his fists clench. Victor had met with numerous shady businessmen, exchanging envelopes stuffed with cash, signing unofficial contracts right in the hotel. In one clip, he whispered to a partner, Don't worry, I've bribed the auditors, just sign it, and your profits will double within months. But that wasn't all. Matteo had also gathered Victor's secret financial records, emails detailing transactions sent to offshore accounts, hiding illicit profits under layers of shell companies. Matteo turned to Ethan, his expression serious. You have enough to bring him down. Ethan nodded, but he needed to be sure. He reached out to former business associates of Victor, people who had been deceived or forced into corrupt deals. At first, they hesitated. But when Ethan revealed that Victor had begun targeting a child to achieve his goals, their hesitation turned into fury. I'll help, one veteran businessman declared. That bastard needs to pay. That evening, Ethan arranged a meeting at an exclusive club, Victor's usual haunt for conducting secret business. But this time, Victor had no idea the game had changed. Victor strolled into the private meeting room, a smug grin on his face. Ethan, I trust you've had time to reconsider. I hope you're wiser than you were this morning. Ethan didn't sit. He stared directly at him, his eyes cold as steel. Actually, I have thought a lot, Ethan said before tossing a thick folder onto the table. And I've realized you're the one who should be worried. Victor frowned, grabbing the documents. As he flipped through the pages, his face turned pale. The evidence was undeniable. Dirty transactions, concealed funds, manipulated deals. He turned another page and saw the surveillance photos. His hands tightened around the papers. Where the hell did you get this? Ethan smirked. I have better friends than you thought. Victor crushed the pages in his grip but quickly forced a casual chuckle, leaning back. You think this can bring me down? I have the best lawyers. I have powerful connections. Do you really think I'd be afraid of this? Ethan slowly shook his head. Maybe you wouldn't be, if this were just about business. He paused before delivering the final blow. But I've already sent all of this to the police and financial crime investigators. Victor froze. If it were just backdoor deals, you might get away with fines, Ethan continued, his voice calm but cutting. But when they see offshore accounts, money laundering trails, and fraud, they won't let you walk away. The door burst open. A team of plainclothes officers stormed in, led by a senior detective. Victor Blackwood, you are under arrest for financial fraud and money laundering. There was no escape. Victor shot up from his chair trying to run, but two officers immediately restrained him. He thrashed against their grip, roaring in rage. No! You can't do this to me! I have lawyers! I have connections! The detective ignored his outburst, reading him his rights as legal officers confiscated his documents. Ethan stood still, watching as the man who had threatened him, Amelia, and Liam was dragged away in handcuffs. Before being forced out the door, Victor turned, his face contorted with fury. "I'll be back," he snarled. "Don't think you've won." Ethan simply crossed his arms and gave him a cool, detached smile. "Good luck in prison, Victor. Are you still following the story? Leave your thoughts on the story in the comments below. Let me know which city you are following the story in." The grand hall of the ancient castle buzzed with noise. Murmurs and whispered conversations filled the space as guests, reporters, and investors speculated about the dramatic arrest of Victor Blackwood. Ethan Whitmore knew this was the defining moment. He could not allow others, especially the media and those with ulterior motives, to twist the narrative of his life. If anyone was going to tell the truth, it had to be him. Under the brilliant glow of the crystal chandeliers, Ethan strode onto the stage. The moment he stepped forward, the room fell silent. His presence commanded attention, but tonight he was not standing there as the cold, untouchable CEO. He was a man carrying the weight of his greatest responsibility. Behind the curtains, Amelia stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She clutched Liam's small hand, her fingers trembling. The little boy, still groggy from sleep, blinked his bright green eyes curiously at the man standing under the spotlight. Ethan took a deep breath, gripping the microphone as he scanned the crowd. "I know there are many questions," he began, his voice steady, "and I am aware of the rumors circulating about me and my family." The audience held their breath, waiting. "Tonight, I will not hide. I will not allow others to distort my truth." He paused, his gaze flickering with emotion before he gave a small, confident smile. "I have a son." His declaration rang out, crisp and powerful. "His name is Liam Bennett." Gasps and murmurs erupted across the room. Some had heard whispers before, but no one expected Ethan to address it so directly. The journalists scrambled to capture every word, their pens flying across notepads, cameras clicking furiously. Amelia instinctively squeezed Liam's hand, but the boy merely tilted his head, his attention fixated on the man standing in front of all these strangers. Ethan continued, his sharp gaze cutting through the room, landing on those who had dared to manipulate his son's existence for their own gain. "Some people assumed I would hide this. Some even attempted to use my son against me, thinking I would bow to their demands." The weight of his words settled over the audience. They all knew exactly who he was talking about. "But they were wrong." His voice carried unwavering conviction. "I will protect my son. I will not allow anyone, no individual, no corporation, no power, to use him as a pawn in their games." The room fell into an eerie silence. No one could doubt his sincerity. Amelia felt a lump rise in her throat. She had spent years fearing she would have to shield Liam alone, that she would never have the strength or resources to keep him safe. But now, for the first time, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. Ethan inhaled deeply, his gaze softening as he moved to the next revelation. "I do not just want to protect my son, I want to do more." He paused, his voice dropping slightly before delivering the next words with precision. "Starting today, I will establish the Liam Foundation, dedicated to supporting single mothers and children in need." The room erupted, where investors nodded in approval. Business leaders murmured in admiration. The journalists who had been poised to write a scandal now found themselves documenting a story of redemption and responsibility. Amelia clutched her chest, overwhelmed. She had never expected this. Ethan wasn't just acknowledging Liam. He was using his influence to help others like her, women who had struggled alone. "He's really changed," she whispered, unable to take her eyes off him. For a few seconds, the hall remained frozen in shock. Then the first few claps echoed. Slowly, the applause grew, spreading until the entire room erupted in a standing ovation. Ethan stood tall, no longer the distant billionaire, but a father stepping into his rightful place. A reporter suddenly stood up, calling out, "Mr. Whitmore, aren't you afraid this revelation will damage your reputation?" Ethan chuckled softly, turning his head toward Liam and Amelia before answering. "I don't care if my reputation suffers." His voice was calm but firm. "The only thing I care about is my son, and I will do everything in my power to protect him." More applause. No one looked at Ethan as a scandal-ridden businessman anymore. They saw him as something far greater, a father taking responsibility. Amelia couldn't stay hidden forever. Mateo, who had been quietly standing near the stage, gave her a gentle push. "Go, you belong up there." She hesitated, but Liam's small fingers tugged at her hand, his eyes bright with excitement. "Mom, let's go." Taking a shaky breath, Amelia gathered her courage and stepped forward, leading Liam toward the stage. As she ascended, the shimmering chandeliers reflected off her simple servant's dress, a stark contrast to the opulence of the evening. But at that moment, she was the most radiant woman in Ethan's eyes. When Amelia finally reached the top, Ethan stepped forward, his gaze warm yet unwavering. "Let's do this together, Amelia." There was no doubt in his voice. Liam grinned, holding tightly onto Ethan's hand. The three of them, standing together as a real family, faced the crowd, unafraid. They had found their way back to each other, and this time, no one would ever come between them again. Outside, the first snowflakes of winter drifted down, glistening under the golden glow of the castle lights. A new beginning had arrived. The grand gala had finally come to an end. The last of the guests had departed, leaving behind a quiet, hollow space where only the golden glow of the chandeliers reflected off the pristine snow outside. Amelia stood by the window watching as snowflakes drifted slowly from the sky, blanketing the ancient stone pathways. Her heart was still unsettled. Ethan had done everything to protect her and Liam. He hadn't run, hadn't denied the truth, but had stood firm, facing everything head-on to shield their son. But what would come next? What did their future look like now? She couldn't stop the fear creeping into her heart. No matter how boldly Ethan had claimed Liam as his son in front of the world, their lives were so different. He was a billionaire. She was just a waitress. Could a happy ending truly exist for them? She jolted slightly at the warmth of a gentle hand resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan's deep, familiar voice pulled her back to reality. She turned to find his gaze on her, no longer the gaze of a powerful businessman, but that of a man trying to make amends. "I'm worried," she admitted, no longer hiding her emotions. "Ethan, you said all the right words tonight, but when the dust settles, when real life starts again, are you sure this is what you want?" Ethan exhaled softly, but instead of arguing, he reached for her hand and held it firmly. "Amelia, I've already lost too many years." He paused, his voice steady and unwavering. "I don't want to lose a single day more. Nothing will change that. But you could continue living your life of luxury without me and Liam," she whispered. "You don't have to change everything for us." Ethan let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. "That's where you're wrong. I need to change. Because without you and Liam, everything I have means nothing." Her breath hitched, emotion glistening in her eyes. "You don't regret this." Ethan stepped closer, his fingertips tracing lightly along her cheek. "The only thing I regret is not knowing about Liam sooner and losing you." Amelia bit her lip, battling the emotions welling up inside her. Ethan tilted his head slightly, his voice softer now. "I know it will take time for you to trust me again, but please, let me try." Before she could respond, a small voice broke through the moment. "Daddy!" Liam came running toward them, his bright green eyes sparkling with excitement, clutching his favorite stuffed bear. Amelia turned to see her son standing before Ethan, looking up with an innocence that could shatter the strongest of hearts. Liam hesitated for a moment before speaking again, his voice soft but earnest. Will you stay with me? Ethan knelt down, wrapping his arms around the little boy, burying his face into his soft curls. I'll always be here, Liam. I promise. It wasn't a casual promise. It wasn't a fleeting reassurance. It was a vow, a solemn, unbreakable vow spoken from the depths of his soul. Amelia brought a trembling hand to her mouth, tears brimming in her eyes. This was what she had longed for all these years. Outside, the snowfall continued, covering the stone steps in a soft white blanket. Ethan lifted Liam into his arms, holding him securely. His gaze shifted to Amelia, filled with warmth and certainty. Let's go. She frowned slightly. Go where? A slow, tender smile formed on his lips. Home. She froze. For so long, she had lived her life independently, believing she had to fight every battle alone. But now she wasn't alone anymore. Liam clung happily to Ethan, his tiny hands grasping onto his father's jacket. This man wasn't just Liam's father. He was the man who had fought for them. He had chosen to stay. He had chosen this family. Amelia exhaled, then nodded, a soft smile curving her lips. Under the quiet London sky, amidst the falling snow, they walked forward together. A family, no more secrets, no more fear. Only a new beginning, one filled with hope. Love and responsibility require the courage to face the truth. Ethan learned to prioritize family over career, realizing that true success lies not only in wealth, but in the people he loves. Amelia discovered that she didn't have to fight alone, and that sometimes giving someone a chance is also a way to find happiness. The story highlights that while the past may be painful, what truly matters is how we choose to confront it. Family, love, and forgiveness are the foundations for building a fulfilling future. Thank you for following our story. Did this story touch your heart? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.